Lab at DevNexus 2024. Gerrit here with me, Han Solo on Twitter. You know him by his Han Solo avatar on Twitter and what's not. Welcome to Gerrit.
Hey, thanks for having me.
By t-shirt, I would assume Azul.
Right, it's Azul.
Yeah, Azul. So Azul you might know as one of the providers of OpenJDK implementations, especially if you use SDKman and you kind of download Java. Like, just give me any Java 21, you will end up with Azul implementation.
Yeah.
So this is like what we know Azul for, but there is more than that.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. So what's going on? What are you doing? What are you bringing? How Java developers can benefit from your work?
Yeah. So we recently came up with a new let's say product, which is called Intelligence Cloud, and the idea is to, if you work in a bank, let's say, or insurance company, you have a code base which is older than you. Right, and you have to.
For sure.
You started working on that, and the people that implemented the stuff you never met because they left the company a long time ago.
Of course.
But you still have to maintain the stuff, right? So there are tools to help you to figure out if code is still in use. But this is based on, we can check if this class is using that class, and this is using that package and that package. So at least this is the stuff we need to run the software. But how do you figure out if your code is actually in production, really used by someone? I mean, you have the software. Do you know if someone really uses that button and that calls the function? Probably not, because
you don't know, and this is important because this focuses your efforts on what's really matters.
Yeah, but the problem is that you have to maintain code where you don't know if it's really used in production or not, right? So, and we try to solve that problem because the JVM, which is the great thing, we are all in JVM stuff, right? So the JVM loads all the jar files, it loads the classes, so it knows, okay, you would like to have this method from that class, okay, I load it. And then over time, you will figure out, or the JVM will figure out that some classes maybe never touched, or some methods never touched. So that we can tell you then, maybe after 6 months, you know what, this part of the code, you never touched. None of your customers ever touched this code, so maybe you can get rid of it.
But this is it makes me a little bit nervous. This is your USB cables box situation, right? You never touched this particular cable, and you think about throwing it away, but you have this nagging feeling that you will need it next week.
Okay, that's the reason why it's up to you. You can monitor. This is not a one-time thing, right? It's not like, okay, tell me now and that's it forever. So it's continuing. So you just start it, and once the JVM is running and your code is running, we just monitor. You can always check, and you will see over time, okay, we touched this code, we touched that code. Oh, look, now we also touched that one. But I mean, after half a year or a year without specific code never been touched, I think you can be sure that even if it will be someone, right, then you maybe bring it back. But the problem is maintaining the stuff. I was surprised because I love coding, but we literally heard that I hate code because we have to maintain all that code, and it's a lot of stuff that we need to do, and we're not sure if we really use it in production or not. So, and that was one of the reasons why we came up with the idea to create this kind of stuff.
I think at least it can focus your efforts.
Yes.
Even if you don't necessarily throw away the parts that no one touched, you can at least focus on those which are heavily used.
It helps you to get an idea how the software is used, right? If it's used at all, and then also how it is used. Because this part of the code is used more often than we thought. We thought this is more often used, it's not. And this is just one part of the story. Because with the same product, with this Intelligence Cloud stuff, it also comes something like we can scan your code in production for security issues. Right, so it means usually what you do, you have a security scanner. They scan stuff in CI/CD, you scan your containers, you scan all these things. But when it comes to production, what usually happens is people just trust the CI/CD. Oh, we scanned in CI/CD, just push it to production. So the first question, what happens if I publish to production, 1 minute later there's a new security issue? Then your software is vulnerable, until the next time you build it and deploy it. And that depends. Some companies deploy a couple of times a day, but usually it takes some time. So, and for this kind of time, you're just vulnerable to stuff that is out there on the internet. And we can tell you at runtime, because the JVM is loading the things and it knows exactly, oh, look, there's a new CVE for this library and you have a dependency. And then we can not only tell you if you have the dependency, we can also tell you if you ever loaded the class, right? This is the advantage.
This is very important because it's a real issue that no one knows how to monitor security issues in production.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, it's called Intelligence Cloud, so it has cloud in the name. Does it only run in the cloud? How does it work?
Yeah, it's
what
interesting.
It has cloud to do with that?
The problem with testing in production is that usually you use agents and we have an overhead there. Mm-hmm. So we try to avoid that. So what we did, we baked it into the JVM. So the JVM itself just monitors this stuff, and then from time to time you install a little tool which is called a forwarder. You install it in your infrastructure, and then what happens is the JVM just calls this forwarder from time to time, tells, well, I loaded this classes, I loaded that class. The forwarder does the heavy lifting, like check the cloud service, whatever, and you can set it up so that it can pass through your firewalls outside, connect to the cloud service, get the information back, like the CVEs and all these kind of things, and then you get some kind of an API, or you get a website where it can tell you, these are your dependencies, you have transient dependencies, there's a vulnerability, but you never load it, so you're still safe, stuff like that. And the good thing is that the JVM itself doesn't really have to do a lot, because it loads the classes anyway. It just tells from time to time to the forwarder, this is the stuff I loaded.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the benefits of Azul comparing to other tools, that you don't need another agent because your JVM is the agent anyway.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
The problem with this, just to interrupt you, sorry, is yes, this is true, but the problem is then you have to have Azure, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
It is a problem for some people. So we will come up with an agent which is just, it's nearly as fast as the JVM inbuilt version, but it's definitely not as slow as the other things that are out there. So we try to make it as fast as possible, and then you could use whatever JVM and just use it with our cloud service to scan production.
I wanted to ask about the other side of this interoperability, and that's using the Warden with other tools than Intelligence Cloud. Because, for example, and you got my thoughts running when we talk about a Gradle Velocity that has a lot of knowledge about the build time, but obviously don't have the knowledge of runtime.
Yeah.
Augmenting it with more information from the Warden will actually make a very comprehensive picture of, for example, dependencies, right? We know that dependencies were linked, we don't know if they don't use them, or vulnerabilities. We know that they were built with those, but we don't know what's running. So how open the Warden is, I would ask.
So it's if you use Intelligence Cloud, it was not made, first of all, it was not made to replace any existing scanners, because we do only production stuff. So the other thing is we try to add this functionality just to production scanning, and we have just an API. It's not something like a fancy website or something. We thought about this is made for integration. So that means we offer you an API, and you can just call the API and integrate it in your product. For example, if you have a Gradle product that does some stuff about dependencies, then you could ask the cloud service and tell me, okay, what is the stuff that's really used in production, and can just display it in your tool. That's the idea behind it.
This is perfect, and we definitely will speak about our product people about integrating with it, because I think it's a great addition that will allow even more visibility and then more productivity and better decisions into what should be done and how.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So we have to make it somehow visible to people that production, just because you scan it in your CI/CD build, doesn't mean it's safe, right? So
and the other way around, it doesn't necessarily mean it's dangerous.
Exactly.
Because I think our friends in JFrog did a lot of research about that, about how more than 80% of the vulnerability functionalities that you have are not actually exploitable.
Yeah.
So you don't need to drop everything and run fix them because there are actually no danger.
That's also one of the reasons why we can show you. You have these dependencies. They are vulnerable, but you don't use them, so you're fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know from many companies they have this problem. They have dependencies with transient dependencies that they can't change, and so these transient dependencies will be picked up by some security scanner and say, "Oh, this is vulnerable. You can't build it." So you say, but we have to because we have the dependency, and then they have to prove that they don't use it. So we can prove that they don't use it.
And also, like, generally speaking about the effort and being productive and actually doing what matters, if there is a vulnerability that is not exploitable in your particular scenario, don't waste time.
Exactly.
And priorities on that. Instead, you will just update it whenever you will update it, but it's not something that you need to do the first thing tomorrow morning.
And with the existing tools, you have a lot of these false positives, right?
Exactly.
And people got this list so that they have to work through just to check if it's really a vulnerability or not. And we don't have this problem because we know what's loaded and not. So we can directly say, oh, no, this is not really problematic. This is, so you can focus on the stuff that's really important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Getting this information from runtime is the exact right source of this info. And Intelligence Cloud sounds like a very, very good point to integrate and get this information on top of the build and the CI and everything else
to see that,
to get like the entire picture.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Cool.
Gerrit, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for sticking with us in the Build Propulsion Lab. Our next interviews come up soon. Stay tuned and